that's how it ends. You're going to hear in the background the Dolphins game playing because I'm making this 11 minutes into the fourth quarter because at this point the game is done, season is done, and it's gone exactly the way that we thought it would go. That most likely, barring something different, if you guys watch this video and something else happened, the Jets are going to beat the Dolphins in the last game of the year. And yes, I want to fire Mike McDaniel. I want to fire Chris Greer. Let's just talk about it. let's just make a video about it, man, because it's just it throws a touchdown for. Yeah, let's talk about it. This team sucks, and the reason why it sucks is not because it does suck, but because the coach right now, actually I'm going to turn it down, it just seems to be like the coach is not ready at this point to be a coach. And you can see that by the play calling and the choice, like the continual choices of this team. I think this is probably going to be a Miami sports fan's worst year because all of the teams besides like the Panthers, it's just going to be a disappointing season. This team sucks. They suck. And it's been the continual choices of this team, for all the core players. It comes down to Tyreek Hill not practicing, and I understand it's Mike McDaniel's choice, but as a player, you definitely have a choice in that you want to play and that you tell your coach that you need to practice. I don't think a coach is going to stop you from wanting to practice. And then it goes down to Tua and that his refusal to understand what type of player that he actually is, and the refusal to understand that you can't be taking hits over and over again. Hit that like and subscribe, by the way, if you like this channel. And then Mike McDaniel does an offense, and then they figure it out. And the only thing that he kind of knows how to do now is throwing screens. General manager, he has incompetence towards building the core of a team and just wants to get flashy players. It's just been a collaborative screw up. And, the problem is we're kind of in a weird position because firing Mike McDaniel, I would say Vrabel or Pete Carroll, mostly Vrabel, but the way that it looks right now, I don't think the New England Patriots just fire Gerard Mayo without knowing for sure that they're going to get Vrabel as the coach. So I think Vrabel's probably going to go to the Patriots. Pete Carroll is probably the last one that I would think, just because I don't want another coordinator going into head coaching role because yikes, after what just happened right now, I don't think that's a move that we can make. So you're kind of stuck with Mike McDaniel at this point. But what I do say is that you need to draft a quarterback. You can't have a quarterback that's just injured basically all the time. And it's not that he gets injured because, Lamar Jackson gets injured. All these quarterbacks, they get injured. But the problem is the type of injuries that he keeps sustaining, and where it is time after time again, he just refuses to understand that he's a Peyton Manning and a Tom Brady. You're not going to be going out there like Josh Allen trying to take hits. And what ends up happening every single time is that Tua gets injured because he does a stupid play, because he just doesn't seem to get it. And again, it's not the injuries, because if you started seeing progress, it would be a different story. But he loses weight this year, and what does he end up doing? He ends up doing a bunch of stupid plays to continually keep himself off the field. His talent is great. I think he could be a really good quarterback. I think he could probably do something for this team to take him deep into the playoffs if you put the right pieces around him. But when you have a quarterback that continually doesn't seem to get that you cannot be taking hits because your body is not strong, and it's not an insult, it's just the pure fact of it that your body is not strong enough to withstand these hits, that you can't be taking unnecessary hits, and the pure fact of the negligence. You can say whatever you want in the press conferences, sure, but every time we play one of these games, you just seem to not get it. And we knew exactly which play it was that he got hurt during that Houston game. It's because he tried to do a stupid play, and instead of sliding, he ends up taking 2 hits. One of them ended up being to the hip. So that's why you draft another quarterback. I would say Carson Beck. He's an upside player. I'm not saying you draft someone in like the first or second, maybe the second, but I don't think there's really going to be anybody that's worth it there. Maybe Jackson Dart in the second, but the pure negligence of this kid to not understand that he can't do this is where I come to this, because you just can't, and he doesn't get it. He keeps doing the same thing over and over again, and like I said, you can say whatever you want in the press conference. It doesn't matter if you keep doing it. Mike McDaniel. This guy, I just don't know what to think about him, because it's a run game coordinator that refuses to get an offensive line and decides to throw fades to 5'10" receivers. But then he also gets Jonnu Smith in perfect positions. He also drafts Devon Achane, so it's very confusing. I say personally we keep Mike McDaniel. Just in the aspect of giving up play calling and just staying as a head coach, because I don't think he understands how to do that. I don't think he gets it. Again, consistent choices where it just seems like all we're doing every game is throwing screens like a college football team. But at this point, there's not really many coaches that you can say to get instead of him. So I think you're kind of stuck with him. So with Mike McDaniel, yeah, I say you keep him. You take every bit of anything away from him, and you just tell him to call timeouts and challenges, and you put it inside of the offensive coordinator's hands to call plays and all of that stuff, because he doesn't seem to get it. He doesn't seem to understand, and just like we all saw it happening, defenses figured him out, and he can't figure out how to do it against good teams. He doesn't know what he's doing. But like I said, if you take the aspect of Mike McDaniel just being a head coach, I think he can be a decent one. I think if you take the play calling and you take all of the offensive coordinator responsibilities and put it on the offensive coordinator, and you just let Mike McDaniel timeouts, challenges, that stuff, I think you could do great. But that needs to happen this next year, because he just doesn't seem to understand it. He doesn't seem to get it, and he has no clue where he's going. He just panics, starts throwing screens when things don't work. But it's a breakdown of everything. And then we'll move on to Chris Greer. This guy, for sure, needs to go. I would not understand why you would keep this general manager after this, because we're going to get beat by the Jets, the final game of the season. And on top of that, the reason that this team does not move forward is because we haven't built the offensive line. And the guy refuses to build the offensive line. And it's been a constant amount of choices that he's continued to make that have really put this team in a setback, where you end up spending all your money on all the outside players and not the core. If you decided to keep one of the core players this offseason and building on that, instead of going for flashy wide receivers, which is also Mike McDaniel's fault, because I'm going to refuse to think that Mike McDaniel had just zero say in this. If you build the core like Dan Campbell did, like every good coach knows to do, this team is fine. Tua is fine. And we don't even have these conversations. But it's just the fact that you decided that you think you know better when you've never built a winning team in your life. And instead of looking at the blueprint of all the winning teams, you decide to do it your way and have this smug attitude in the beginning of the season that it's just, you almost laugh at, as a fan, you're almost laughing back at this guy, because him laughing about the offensive line and saying you'll see this and that, man, just the ignorant pride on someone could not get any bigger, where it's just blowing up in your face, as we all thought it would. And this is a key problem. It's the choices that you made. The fifth-year option should have used on Tua because you don't know if he can stay healthy or not. Extending Tyreek Hill and all of these different players when you don't even know if you can really do anything with them yet, they haven't proven anything, is a huge problem. And the fact that when you let Robert Hunt go, and Christian Wilkins, you got very lucky. Zach Sealer turned out to be just fine. But when you let Robert Hunt go, at that point you realize that guy was pretty much the anchor. Like, he was your best offensive lineman. Teron Armstead, I don't consider him that, just because he's never really on the field. Half the season he's always injured. This is the only season that he's missed less than 5 games. Robert Hunt was your best offensive lineman, and he goes. And so does Connor Williams go, who was a Pro Bowl center. And you then don't decide to shore up the offensive line, seeing that last year your stupid play calling didn't work against good teams because they would just destroy your offensive line. And you decide to do it again with a worse offensive line this year. I mean, you don't even really know what to say anymore when it comes to this team, because it's pathetic. And you want to sit there and go, the Jets are horrible, but are the Dolphins really that much better? Yeah, when Tua's on the field 100%, we become a better team, but just how this team is built, where, I don't know, the coach it's just a lot of choices. It's a lot of choices that were made that are just not good. There's a certain point where you have to stop being best friends with everybody, and you have to start acting like a person that is the owner of a business. And the fact of it being that you own a business, and in order to have a business succeed in life, you need to make sure that your best assets are continually growing. And this team is more just a showcase for money, where you have a nice little show that goes on against every bad team, but we're never actually going to do anything against good teams because we've never built anything properly. We didn't build the business right. We build it with bringing in names, but we didn't build the core of the business to be able to grow these assets into a revenue-sharing company. And that's kind of the problem with this team. It's been this way for, I don't remember how long, but it's continually been a problem, And like I said, at the end of this year, I think you have to draft a quarterback. I think you don't get rid of Mike McDaniel because there's nobody else really out there. It's going to be a very similar situation, unless you're wowed by head coaching candidates. And you got to fire Chris Grier, and you got to bring in a general manager. We'll go over some general manager names later on this coming week. But we have to see, because Chris Grier should be fired tomorrow after this, what it looks like is going to be a loss. If he's not, I don't know what to do at this point. I don't know what it is, because any just brainstem of a person would know to fire Chris Grier at this point. They would know that, and we'll see what happens. But hopefully we wake up with news tomorrow that Chris Grier is fired, because that's what needs to happen. This team is a joke, and something big needs to change. But as always, guys, fins up, baby. We'll see what happens. Love you all. Peace.